there's a lot of beautiful education going on social media right now, and a lot of resources and vocabulary given to contextualize some of the experiences, right? I hadn't heard the word microaggression before. I'd heard the word tokenism before. Like, there are certain words that I could point out in my own experiences, but there are others that, you know, now give context and meaning to things that I just knew I had a deep discomfort with growing up, but I didn't have the words to point out. And what ends up happening is that you end up burying a lot of those emotions and thinking, okay, this isn't a problem. I'm the problem in terms of my feelings being misrepresented here. Like, clearly what I'm feeling is wrong, and so I'm just going to move along. And I think that has been really heartbreaking for me, kind of looking back at like a younger self and thinking about how many times I've experienced certain things and I've to myself assimilated. Like, I've put myself in a place or a box of, don't worry about that, that's not a problem. And it's one thing when others do it to you, but it's another like grief when you realize how much you've assimilated to the narrative and how much you've bought into this system and how much you have kind of shifted your own identity in order to belong to whatever this very awful story has been that the world has created for us, in which many people have been totally disenfranchised, right? So to kind of look back and think, oh my gosh, like, I did this to myself and I need to course correct that right away as well, is just another layer of kind of exhaustion that can build back up. And I think, you know, there's so much complexity.
Thanks for saying that, Elaine. Like, I've struggled with that so much the last few months, and it's so hurtful because now you're having to really connect with yourself and relearn and unlearn and almost encourage yourself to trust your instinct to have these conversations with people. It's hurtful, but I think when what we are doing with each other and what we hope to do with our community and our patients is create this safe, this brave space where this transformation is going to happen. And I hope that we see, you know, in 20, 30 years from now, that this conversation was like in the history books, that this is no longer happening, that we've all progressed to another level. So thank you for even voicing that and saying that you struggled with it, because I often thought it was just my own struggle and that it was me who was in this situation and no one else struggled with it.
I think it also, it just really quickly alludes to as we're sharing our experiences, I just want to refocus a view as well, as that I think the more people share this, whether they've been on the receiving end or they've been on the giving end of racism or even microaggressions, is that now that we can talk about it and we're feeling this way, this discomfort, this way, but for hundreds of years that Black and Indigenous people have been treated this way. When I first came into this was this transparency of saying you have a lot of work to do in the South Asian community, and that you have to really address that. Yes, you are a woman of color. Yes, you've experienced racism, but you are also a woman of color who is privileged and is still going to have a different set of circumstances applied to her than someone who is Black and Indigenous. And I think in my own community, that's where like I started to feel a lot more guilt, is that in my own community, there is so much racism, in my opinion. And I think it starts more so, we put it under the veil of colorism, that there's skin lightening creams and so forth and so on. But I still think I've grown up my whole life, don't stay out too long because you're going to get dark. Don't do this because you're going to become this. And so taking ownership that it's also individual but a collective, and what can we do there. And so when I see Gurdwaras coming out for Sikhs, for Black Lives Matter, that's a community that I now see leading and I want to be a part of. And I think that then brings me back, okay, who do I vote for? Who do I write? Where do I ask for change? because my experiences are not the lived experiences of hundreds and hundreds of years of sort of racism. And that's what my guilt is, that I've gone around saying I've experienced so much racism growing up, because we grew up in Pickering and my brother wore a turban and we did, but still very different. And I'm still very, very privileged to be able to have those conversations, even when I talk about my complicitness as well as what's happened to me. So.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Sim, that recognizing that white privilege is not just experienced by white people. We have, in terms of race, we need to still have our own experiences as a way to understand, but also remember what we're fighting for in this particular moment. And that's putting our attention towards Black lives and Indigenous lives, right?